Before commencing with the introduction to this particular book, namely The Moon God Seen in Neo-Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian Times by Aino Hattinen, I would like to focus on my research, derived from many academic sources and peer-reviewed journals, and experience with trafficking with the gods, in this short fragment of a text. Let us read. 40 kilometers from this city once called Edessa, Urfa, in southeastern Turkey, lie the ruins of Harran. A hot climate in the summer, mild winters, and abundance of lions and mosquitoes. This is how Ammianus Marcellinus described this place that once connected several important trade routes of Asia Minor, Syria, and Mesopotamia. Harran was founded 2 millennia before our era, most likely as a trading post of the city of Ur, where the temple of the moon god, Sin, served as an oracle for many generations of Semites, Persians, Greeks, and Romans. From the fall of the Babylonian Nabonidus through its absorption by Persia until the Muslim conquest in 639 Anno Bastardi. In remote antiquity, caravans passing through Harran were often the victims of raids. The Assyrian king, Shamshi-Adad, 1813-1781, before that bastard Jesus no one, launched a military expedition to subject the region and protect the trade routes that crossed Harran. Pliny the Elder, in the 1st century Common Era, upheld the view that Harran still played an important trade role. Al-Masudi noted in his book The Meadows of Gold and Mines of Gems that the Sabians of Harran had temples named according to the intellectual substances of the stars and planets, and thus the temple of Saturn was hexagonal, later of course adopted by the Judaistic lie. Not only that, hexagon in the theology of arithmetics was also a Pythagorean symbol. This was elucidated earlier in my dialogue on the theology of arithmetics. So basically, Jews and Judaism appropriated this symbol and called it the Star of David. They have no right nor legitimacy to use it. Now, furthermore, the temple of Jupiter, triangular, the temple of Mars, long and rectangular, the temple of the Sun, square, the temple of Venus, a triangle inscribed in a quadrilateral, the temple of Mercury, a triangle inscribed in an elongated quadrilateral, the temple of the moon, octagonal. When you have second sight and look towards the moon, you will see the divine octagon as it is. It is said that if one looks at the moon with a discerning wise and ethereal gaze, one can perceive this octagon, marveling at the wisdom of the ancients. The Sabians had their symbols and mysteries, which were well hidden from the profane. In the 11th century work Gayat al-Hakim, a book more commonly known as Pychatrix, a prayer to Saturn, has been preserved. What story moved the pagans of Harran to adopt the name of the Sabians? According to the account of Ibn al-Nadim, the Caliph Mamun, while on the expedition against Byzantine territory, he passed the city of Harran in 830 Anno Bastardi. He noticed men wearing short tunics with long hair curly on the sides. He asked them, "Which of the people of the covenant are you? Jews, Christians, or perhaps Magoi?" They answered no to each question. He asked again, "Do you have a holy book or a prophet?" To this they gave no answer. Mamun said, "You are unbelievers, idol worshippers, worshippers of a head, who lived in the time of my father Rashid. I can shed your blood. There is no covenant to protect you." Of course, he meant the covenant of Jews with their inferior pig. The people of Harran replied, "We pay you taxes." The Caliph rejected this argument and said, "These taxes can be paid only by non-Muslim sects whom God, exalted be his name," again Jewish God, mentioned in his book, who have their scripture, which ensures good relations with Muslims. You do not belong to any of them, so either become Muslims, or I will slaughter you all upon my return from the campaign. You have time to think. After the visit, according to Ibn al-Nadim, some became Christians, again Jews, other Muslims, again believing in a Jewish God. But a certain group remained unwavering. A sheikh living in Harran offered them advice for a fee. When Mamun returns from his journey, tell him you are Sabians, for they are mentioned in the Quran. Mamun died shortly after his stay in Harran, and when word of his death reached the city, those who had become Christians cast off the yoke of the religion of lies and returned to their previous beliefs, and those who had become Muslims secretly celebrated the rites of the ancients. In the catalogue of Ibn al-Nadim, these mysteries are touched by his pen. The secret al-Sir of the north, Shamal, Legomena, that is, ritual words, were joined with Dromena, that is, ritual acts. In Harran, these rituals were performed in the house of the al-Bugadyarin, though in his catalogue Ibn al-Nadim does not name the god to whom the rites pertain. The texts of secrets came into his possession through the Syriac language, translated into Arabic, described by Wahb ibn Ibrahim. There it is described how to address the North Pole, and thus the Pole Star, to find and attain wisdom. Among the Akkadians and Sumerians, and later among the Mandeans and Manichaeans, the north was associated with divinities, while the south with darkness. The mysticism of directions need not to have anything to do with geography. It could refer to the axis of the world. Hence, in later time, ascensio was the ascent through the spheres, and katabasis, the descent into the abyss, was a fall into the cosmic void, from which nectar and ambrosia was recovered. The secrets of the north were also connected to the birth of the Lord who is the moon. The performance of the northern mysteries took place on the 24th day of the second Kanun, January. Through the entire month was sacred to them. Additionally, important festivals concerning the moon lord, Sin, were held on June 27th, Haziran, and September 28th, Aylul. In Al-Biruni's work, we find the following chronology. During these first festivals, the mystery of the north included sacrifices, veneration of the sun god, burnt offerings, feastings. That day, they also celebrated the mysteries of the star Al-Simak, the brightest star in the constellation Virgo. In April-May, they celebrated northern rites, worshipping the sun, smelled the scent of roses, feasted, and the next day held a feast in honor of their god sun, and also the Salugi feast, whom Al-Biruni called the Prince of Devils, because he was a Muslim. Not mentioning that Satan was an Islamic term for an Iblis that opposed Islamic conversion. Keeping in mind that in Islam, Al-Shaitan is the one who opposes Islam. Now, Al-Biruni also described periods of fasting without meat or wine, for example, during the festival of the sun's bride. On the 10th of February, Shubat, in January they devoted themselves to invoking divine forces with fasting, followed by feasting. Now, back to this book. First things first, the moon god Sin in assyriological research, I wanted to focus on how the lunar phases were exactly treated. So we have the moon and the moon god. The origin of the sickle symbol was the kefesh, the weapon, and that was later translated into the sigma lunata of Saturn, because there was a mysterious connection between sun, moon, and Saturn. So the moon god as a celestial light, the moon god lunar cycle, conceptions of time. That was a highly developed theology, since associations with Anu, so High, Ea, and Enlil. Sin and divine decisions, sin and kingship, sin, creation, growth, and animals, sin, oaths, curses, and punishment, sin, illnesses, and healing, the family and household. The cult of sin in Babylonia and Assyria. This was a really ancient cult, lasting for millennia. Now, as something interesting, I would like to present the exact times of phases and celebrations on each day. So every day was honored in some form of a ritual by the priests and by the people. On the first Nisanu Ayaru, that is on the example of the mount of Nisanu. Evening and morning offerings, offering, bread offering, prostration, bread offering, Rimko of Sin, Ashur, bread offering, that was in Assyria, as we see by the Ashur term. Rimko of Sin, Ashur. Ningal intercedes with Sin, accountancy of Sin and Bereteli. Bereteli, according to mythology, was the mother of humans. And every phase of the moon, every day, was somehow venerated, and in his temples there were celebrations and festivals. So I would elucidate more, let's say, mysteries, but I think that is enough. And each time you look at the moon, whether you prefer Selene, the Isle of the Blessed, or any other form of theistic understanding of the planets, their natures and spheres, the intelligences, the spirits associated and assigned to them, whether you believe in them or not, think how many millennia, hundreds of thousands of years, how many millions of years that particular ancient satellite of our Earth seen. And you may say it's only a rock, but when you look through a metaphysical lenses, it's full of invisible life, of the intelligences, of the palaces of the moon, which once I visited with my soul. So I would like to cite Ernst Jünger at the very end of this speech, that when people went to walk on the moon, Apollo 10 mission, they didn't notice any life there, because they brought a wasteland, a metaphysical wasteland along from Earth. Although from the transcriptions of Apollo 10 mission we may notice that at certain point of this mission, one of the astronauts started hearing divine sounds. He said, like, look, a buzzing sound like a divine symphony. And then on Earth, the ground control decided that it was some radio interference. Very interesting. Thank you.